The Knicks firing Tibbs. The Bucks stretching Damian Lillard. The Rockets going all in for Kevin Durant. What are the biggest gambles that NBA teams or players made this offseason, and will they pay off? That's today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free. We are available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season, it's around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. And I have two of the best with me, as always. From the Locked On Nuggets podcast, he's a senior NBA writer for the Action Network. It's Matt Moore. Matt?
Glad to be with you guys. Excited for today's conversation about all of the big bets that teams are making this season. I am cautiously optimistic that we're going to have a great season despite all the injuries in the NBA.
All right, that's Matt's big bet. It is FanDuel Futures Day today, and so we are looking at the biggest gambles this season. From the Locked On Bulls podcast, he's also a Bears and Bulls creator for Bleacher Report. It's Hayes. Hayes, how do you celebrate FanDuel Futures Day?
About watching everybody make crazy bets, because I don't really bet that often, but I love talking about people who like to make talking with people who like to make crazy bets. So that's what I like to do.
All right, let's talk some big gambles around. Go ahead, Matt.
I was just looking at Bears to finish fourth in the division, plus 140. That was good. Yeah.
It's FanDuel Futures Day over at FanDuel.com, so I thought we'd honor this most high holiday by talking about the biggest gambles teams are making heading in to the 25-26 season. Matt, lead us off. There's really a lot to choose from. It was a surprisingly active offseason. Which team do you think made a huge gamble?
I got a couple of really good ones, but let's start with the Knicks. So you've got all the success with Tom Thibodeau, and you know what you're getting with Tom Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau is that safe, reliable restaurant. I have this argument with my wife all the time about, do you want to go, you're going out to dinner, you've got busy work life, busy personal life, busy professional life, the kids, all of those things, and you got to choose a restaurant. And my wife always wants the safe, reliable option. She's like, I know I can get there. I like this restaurant. I know they will give me a margarita that has enough alcohol in it to ply me. That is good. And I'm like, well, we could go somewhere new though. What if it's even better than this other restaurant? And the Knicks chose the new restaurant, which is Mike Brown, which is kind of like going, I don't want to go to three margaritas. I want to go to On the Border. But anyway, they chose to disrupt their good thing that they had going with Tibbs. You know the team's going to play hard. You know it's going to be intense. They opted for an upgrade here with Mike Brown, and just disrupting that continuity, I think, is a bit of a gamble.
Hayes, do you agree that it's a new restaurant? Is it a gamble?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a gamble. I agree with everything Matt said there. I mean, if you were going to move on from Tibbs, I thought they would do something more dramatic than move to Mike Brown. But it is still a gamble nonetheless, because you haven't really changed very much of that roster. I like some of the additions you've made, like Yabusele. I love that he's an addition to that New York Knicks team. But as it stands right now, it's like choosing between Chili's and On the Border. It's not really that much.
To be fair, they did try and interview half the known universe. So they tried to get reservations in like 12 different better restaurants. And then were like, they couldn't admit defeat and go back to three margaritas. So they had to go to On the Border.
Yeah, that was the point that I was going to make. And Hayes, you sort of hit on it there, is that Mike Brown is a known quantity. So it isn't like you're going to some weird startup restaurant that has a wild fusion menu. This is like some franchise rolling into town. Whataburger is invading Nashville, Tennessee right now. So like even though we haven't had it here, we know what Whataburger is and what Whataburger does. And so when you roll up into the drive-thru, you kind of have some idea, and it's really, is it going to fit your appetite? And I think that's the question that New York Knicks fans are trying to answer right now, is how is that all going to work? Because they knew Tibbs, Jalen Brunson. They knew what that relationship did, and both for good and for ill, but it resulted in 2 straight seasons of 50 and 51 wins. And, but unfortunately it didn't lead to a finals appearance.
First off, if there's nothing on the Whataburger menu that fits your appetite, then your appetite's wrong. Like, just let's be very clear on that. With their wide array of both breakfast and dinner options, I miss Whataburger very much here in Colorado. Second, yeah, look, there's some disruption here, but I do think it's kind of relevant that you said, like, well, that is Mike Brown, right? So it's like, what do you really want? And they decided that they want their baby back. They want their baby back. They want their baby back ribs.
Barbecue sauce. Over at Locked On Knicks, they played a game of real or for real or Fugazi and discussed how Mike Brown can influence the offense immediately. Let's take a listen to that.
For real or Fugazi, Brunson hits 35% assist percentage for the first time in his career under Mike Brown this year.
For real.
Oh, the optimism overflows.
Tibbs is like the guy who's, when he's under the gun, it's just like, do the thing that works, that we've practiced, that we've executed. Like, he's not getting fancy. So, like, when push comes to shove, he's like, go get me a bucket, Jalen. Mike Brown will help kind of get those numbers up a little bit, encourage him to not always ISO.
I think that we saw with Sacramento that Mike Brown was more than willing to use Sabonis as a ball handler and as someone to run possessions. And Sabonis had pretty good assist numbers for ostensibly their center while he was there. Not quite Nikola Jokic or anything, but, he has a rep as one of the better assist men at the 5 spot in the NBA now behind Jokic. And that has a lot to do with how Mike Brown coached him.
One quick question before we move off of this and get Hayes' biggest gamble. Hayes, Mike Brown, the coach with the most pressure to get off to a good start, coming off those 251 seasons, like if they're, running 5-6 games below 500 after 20, 25 games, what are we saying?
I mean, with it being New York, maybe, but make no mistake, like I still think like the Lakers are still there, are always going to be a team. If they get off to a slow start, they're likely to panic, especially with the new investment in Luka. So the Knicks are there, but if the Lakers get off to like a very, very bad slow start, heads are going to roll in LA.
Matt, what do you think?
I would just kind of go back to the Suns. If things go badly, is Matt Ishbia just going to find another Michigan State alum? There's a lot of people that graduated from Michigan State, so surely he can find somebody else who wants to do the job.
That's the safest bet in the NBA right now. Okay, Hayes, your turn. What team made a huge gamble this offseason?
The Houston Rockets. Come on now. They traded for Kevin Durant, a team that won over 50 games last year, and this is a team that's up and coming, and they decided to jumpstart their progress a little bit by trading for Kevin Durant, who's still one of the most efficient scorers in the NBA. And not to say that if this does not work, that their rebuild is all screwed over. It's not, because you still got Amen Thompson, you still got Alperen Sengun. But if this does not work out, there are going to be a lot of questions and tough answers that they're going to have to find. I feel confident in it. But they made a huge gamble by trading. Now, they didn't give up a whole heapage of assets for it. They gave up Jalen Green and some picks, and I think that that's perfectly fine for what they gave up for him. But it's still a gamble nonetheless, because now there are going to be even higher expectations on what the Houston Rockets can be next season.
I think the only reason they did this was because they knew it wasn't a gamble, because it was like, we want to get rid of Jalen Green anyway. And it's like, it's Dylan Brooks, who has an expiration date, and they didn't have to send back any of the Suns picks. I still cannot believe the Suns.
That's crazy.
They didn't get any of their picks back. How do you trade Kevin Durant and not get your picks back? That poor team. I don't know. I just don't know how much of a gamble this really is, because it's just like, yeah, hey, do you want to add Kevin Durant for some stuff you got lying around? Not like, it's not, they didn't trade garbage. They didn't trade like extra stuff. They traded like the couch, right? They traded the couch for like a really great set of recliners that have like cup holders, and they've got power, like USB ports built in, and seat warmers. That's like the nicest recliners you're going to find. They had to give up some stuff for it, but it's like still like such a huge upgrade. I don't know how much of a gamble it is. Hey, it's guys, like, I really do want to know this question. What makes you like this Rockets team so much? Like, what's like the one thing that when you look at this team, you're just like, I love this about them?
Well, I mean, it's the potential, of course, but also how good they are defensively. Emman Thompson is a huge part of that, and I think they're coached very well. I think it's those three things all combined. Like they're already winning a lot of games, and the upside to them is tremendous. And this is a team that I just think we're seeing them be really they're good right now, but I think they could be great in a couple of years.
So is there any gamble? I mean, obviously, like the assets that went out, as you pointed out, not a lot. But is there a gamble in terms of the culture that they've built? Because they, particularly with losing Dylan Brooks, has an expiration date, sure, but was a culture setter there in terms of the physicality that he played with, the intensity that he played with. Do you feel like that there's any risk there bringing Kevin Durant, who isn't, I don't know, he's necessarily known as like a culture setting type of guy?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Durant isn't a leader. And so now, like, even say what you will about Dylan Brooks, I'm not saying that he's like the best leader either, but he was there to help set a tone for that team. And he was probably under his best behavior there with the Houston Rockets, learning some things that he did from being with the Grizzlies. So I think that's a part there. I mean, they still got veterans like Fred VanVleet. They still have Ime Udoka as the coach, who's definitely going to set a tone there. But I think also, like, I think we have to look like they're going to extend Kevin Durant. I don't think it's going to be a huge extension. It's going to be a 2-year extension with the over 38 rule, but like that's also another gamble in this as well. You lock yourself in to Kevin Durant, no matter how close you can get that deal to what Jalen Green would have been making. It's still another risk for your team, and it could be something that actually throws off the development of your players if he does not work out with his roster.
I would think one team that just kind of. You know who this team reminds me of is the 2019 Raptors with Kawhi. It's a little bit like that, right? You got Pascal Siakam, you've got Norman Powell, you've got OG Anunoby, you've got all these young guys. You've got Fred VanVleet, actually there from that team, but now Fred VanVleet's in the Kyle Lowry role, right? Reed Shepherd's going to have to be the Fred VanVleet for them and shoot 80% on threes versus the Thunder, but I think that's like an interesting comp for how they've kind of put together the team with a similar kind of Kawhi he's not a leader. He doesn't like bring you forward. He just gets buckets. And I think the same is going to be kind of true of Kevin Durant.
All right, coming up on Locked On NBA, we have more of the biggest gambles teams made in the offseason. Plus, later on in the show, we're going to go back to our tournament of moves, the final Elite 8 matchups heading in to the Final Four to determine the best NBA signature move of all time. That's all coming up on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by OpenPhone. If you're running a business, every missed call could be a missed opportunity. Think about it. Last time you had a service emergency, did you wait for a call back? Probably not. That's why you need OpenPhone. It's the #1 business phone system that streamlines your customer communication and helps you scale, all from an app on your phone or computer. I love that I don't need to carry 2 phones. With OpenPhone, I can manage my business calls and my texts from one app, whether I'm at my desk or I'm on the go. And their AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so that I never miss a customer. And right now, OpenPhone is offering our listeners 20% off your first 6 months. Just go to openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you're switching from another provider, they'll even port your number over for free. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to LockedOnPodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's LockedOnPodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. We're talking biggest NBA gambles in honor of FanDuel Futures Day. Hayes, what's your next big gamble?
Mine is the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, they made a huge gamble this offseason in what they did in deciding to waive Dame and bring in Miles Turner. This is all going on while reportedly Giannis is still kind of not committed but non-committal as far as a long-term future in Milwaukee as well. Like the Bucks better hope that they thread this needle, that they do enough to keep Giannis engaged in wanting to stay there in Milwaukee, because you talk about teams that can get off to a slow start. ESPN recently did a poll of their insiders, and the Bucks were predicted as a team to take the biggest step back from last year. And if that happens, I just don't know if Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to want to stay in Milwaukee, where he's made it clear that he wants to compete for titles. Now, I know he's attached to the city of Milwaukee, as he should be. He can do whatever he wants in that city, but the Milwaukee Bucks are walking a tightrope here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I looked at it a little bit differently, which is they went kind of all in on the idea of going back to Giannis and shooters. They're relying a lot on they need Kevin Porter Jr. to be great. Like they are putting a big gamble here on Kevin Porter Jr. If KPJ is not what he was to end last season, they're in real danger. Like that's going to be a very troublesome spot that they're in. I continue to worry about Doc Rivers. Like, I'm just like, is this going to work with Doc? Reportedly, he's a big reason why Giannis is still kind of tethered to Milwaukee, is his faith and relationship with Doc Rivers. But I just continue to kind of wonder, is Doc the guy to get the most out of this roster? I think there's opportunity here for the Bucks to surprise everybody and be like, oh, wow, okay, Giannis is a tank by putting the ball back in his hands more. Because I never thought the fit between him and Dame was great. But I do think there's a certain amount of gamble that they're taking here with just trying. They're honestly, they didn't change enough. Kyle Kuzma's still on the roster. That's a big gamble. They didn't go far enough, I think, is the gamble I have with them, is that they changed stuff. They got rid of Dame, and I don't necessarily mind that. And adding Miles Turner for Brook Lopez, don't necessarily mind that. But they didn't go far enough in reshaping this roster, and that's the question that I have about this team.
The Milwaukee Bucks are certainly betting on keeping Giannis happy enough to stick around. Locked On Bucks says if you're betting against the Bucks this season, you need a reality check. Let's listen to that.
Last year, they won 48 games. The year before that, they won 49, which is coming down from them winning 58, 3 seasons prior to this. So, like, how much more of a quote-unquote humble do you think that this Bucks team is really going to take with Giannis at the helm, even if you don't have the additional star power around him? That's the piece of, for me, it's where it's like, do y'all think the Bucks are going to be like a 32-win team or something this upcoming year? Like, what type of tumble is being projected for this team? Which is why, for myself, when I look at things like this, I don't see the Bucks really tumbling too much, because this was a team that was fighting, for a top 6 seed last year. And I can see that being the exact same case again this year, and in a package, one could say, that might actually surprise more people than what they were able to do last year.
Okay, Matt, what is your next big gamble?
The Sacramento Kings. What is this roster? Like, what is this roster? Okay, so you have Zach LaVine, and you have Keon Ellis, and you have DeMar DeRozan, and then your big free agency acquisition, the guy you had to get, was Dennis Schroeder. And now there's all this talk about, like, oh, they're trying to get Malik Monk out the door so that they could add Russell Westbrook. I'm Wendy's finger in here. Like, what's going on with this? Terrible phrasing. So I think Isaac Jones, Keegan Murray, I'm wondering if he's going to get lost in this whole thing. I do not know what this Kings team is going to be, Hayes. I do not know where they're headed. I don't know what direction they're going in. Do you remember Domantas Sabonis had some comments last season about not being sure about the direction of the franchise? Like, I don't know if Domantas is going to wind up finishing the season with the Kings. We said the last year, I was like, hey, look out. De'Aaron Fox may not finish the season with the Kings. And now we're going through the exact same thing. I don't know where things are going with Sacramento, but their gambles make me believe that they're not going to go good places.
Yeah, it's they're in a weird place. And I don't know if you saw from Mark Stein yesterday. He said that they're not even considering Malik Monk's trades anymore. They're going to find a different way to still try to add Russell Westbrook. Like, the roster makes no sense at all. It's confusing. Shout out to having Chicago Bulls West over there. We've been there, especially with having DeMar and Zach LaVine on your team. They've made a mess of this situation. We're not that far. I said this on a couple episodes ago. We're not even that far removed from the Bean team. Like, the Sacramento Kings couldn't even have 3 years of that team that was fun. They had a gimmick that got the fans involved. And now they're right back in a place where there's nothing but uncertainty around not only the present, but the future of their roster as well. I don't know what the Kings are doing. I have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they stopped considering Malik Monk trade offers so much as they didn't get any Malik Monk trade offers. I think that was sort of the situation there, and they decided, all right, we've got to find another way to get Russell Westbrook on the roster. Check out Locked On Kings for more on that. When you look back at the situation, though, over these many years, like do you come to some conclusion about one thing, one lesson to be learned from this Kings debacle that says, like, all right, when you're building a team, because look, we praise the Indiana Pacers for continuing to try to win, even when they were sort of in the mediocre zone. They continued to try to win. Sacramento has done the same thing, but they just haven't been as successful at it. Can you pinpoint one reason why, Matt?
So I thought the decision to part ways with Monty McNair was actually short-sighted. I thought that was a lot of scapegoating there. I didn't really understand that, because you need a little bit of stability in the front office in order to see out a vision, because they keep pivoting constantly with like rosters. So it's like, oh, Vladdy's running things. Nope, we're going this way. Nope, we're going this way. Nope, we're going this way. They keep changing directions constantly. And the best organizations have stability so that the guy that they trust at the top can instill that not only in the roster, but all the way down. There are consequences and things that get lost in all of your good process if you're constantly changing leadership. And so I actually think their biggest need is they need to find a head of basketball operations that they really believe in, trust, and is a long-term solution, because I do not think that they have that now. And I think that they're going to need to find that before we get into like how to build the roster and everything else.
Agreed.
All right, coming up on Locked On NBA. By the way, let us know what you think. Your biggest gambles this offseason heading into the season. YouTube.com/@LockedOnNBA, where you voted on our tournament of moves. We've got a few more matchups to go here in the Elite Eight before we get to our Final Four. That's coming up on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. Today is the day, August 26th. It is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, if you're listening on August 26th, you have just a little bit of time left. FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions, so whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before Week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer on that MVP race. That's what I'm doing. I'm taking a flyer on Jaden Daniels because he's my fantasy quarterback. I want to manifest greatness. I'm going to throw one more in there. Super Bowl winner? Why not the Carolina Panthers? The NFL, it's still a league of parity. I'm betting on Bryce Young. Yes, I'm a giant homer, but I'm doing it because it's FanDuel Futures Day, and you get crazy on FanDuel Futures Day. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. It's time now to go to our tournament of moves. We have a couple of matchups here before we get to our Final Four, and we start with the 2 seed, Michael Jordan, and his post fadeaway, up against the 6 seed, Allen Iverson, and his killer crossover, which he famously hit over Michael Jordan. And the YouTube vote, it is close, folks. This is one of the closest YouTube votes we've had since we began this tournament several weeks ago. And MJ right now is the winner, 55-45. But the YouTube vote is not the singular vote. Matt and Hayes both have a vote. Hayes, we'll start with you. What do you think? MJ's post fadeaway or Iverson's killer crossover? Are you going to go ahead and give MJ the win, or are you going to keep Allen Iverson's hopes alive?
No, I mean, MJ's getting the win here. The post fadeaway. Like, don't get me wrong. This is a great matchup. And it's funny because of course, Iverson crossing up Jordan in that whole moment. But the post fadeaway was just, it's the better move. He had more success doing it. He actually won titles doing it. Not to say that Iverson's move isn't great, and it does deserve to be this far into it. But he came up against MJ. MJ's post fadeaway wins here easily for me.
MJ could hit this over two defenders. Allen Iverson cannot cross over two defenders. Well, he probably could have, but it's a lot more difficult to cross over two defenders. So I'm going to go ahead and give it to MJ as well. This is an iconic move. There's a lot I think that could have dethroned MJ's post fadeaway, like Dr. J's scoop layup that unceremoniously got dumped yesterday because people are short sighted. But MJ, the problem I do have here, Hayes, is if we took out the crossover from AI and gave it to somebody else, how great is the move? And it's still great. If we take out Jordan's fadeaway and we give it to somebody else without his history of winning, is the move still as good?
No.
So like, this is an interesting question of like, are we voting on the move or are we voting on the player? Right? The YouTube vote shows that we're voting on the player most times. And I think that that's something that's kind of interesting, is that we do tie these moves to the identity of the player, not only from who they were on the court stylistically, but also from a success standpoint. And it makes you wonder if like there were better moves by players who didn't win as much. Like, that's an interesting question and a rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, but to me, the message of this tournament, if you take anything philosophically away from the silly game that we've been playing over these many weeks, it's that it's impossible to separate art from artist, that these things are inextricably linked. I love the killer crossover more than the UTEP two-step because it was Allen Iverson and he was a little guy, and it was fun watching the little guy trip up the big guys. That's always going to be fun. I'm a David guy, and so over Goliath, and so I liked it. The problem, and I would have voted MJ as well, the problem with this matchup is that we think about Michael Jordan as being great at all things, everything from the moment that he stepped on a basketball floor, but he actually wasn't great at this move when he first started out. He had to learn this move, and he perfected this thing, somewhere in the like early mid part of his career, and he turned it into one of the most deadliest moves of the 1990s. So yes, you have to give it to MJ, but I'm glad this vote was close.
Yeah, and I think it was representative of how great Allen Iverson's crossover was. Now, I'm glad that we're done talking about separating art from artist. Let's talk about Kobe Bryant.
Okay, let's go to the next matchup. It wasn't very close in the YouTube vote, at least. It is Hakeem's Dream Shake, the number 1 seed, versus the number 4 seed, Kobe's baseline fadeaway jumper. YouTube 75 to 25% in favor of the Dream, Hakeem, and his shake. Matt, we'll start with you. Set this matchup up for us and give us your vote.
I've gone to bat for Kobe's baseline fadeaway a lot in these matchups, based off of how the aesthetic property of it and how often he hit it in big games. But Hakeem's got him on all levels here. It's a more complicated move. It's a more difficult to replicate move. It's a more efficient move. He got it on the best defenders in the league over and over and over again. Everybody got by the Dream Shake. David Robinson, Shaquille O'Neal, Dikembe Mutombo. Everybody got by the Dream Shake. And again, I would ask, go back and watch. Don't just think in your head, because like my idea of like the Dream Shake is like, oh, the head fake and the double step and the pivot into the fadeaway baseline. But there's so many counter moves that he's got built into his shake, into those post-up moves, into that sequence that he's got. Like, that to me is what makes the Dream Shake unbelievable, Hayes, is the complexity and the number of options that he could kill you with. It didn't matter what choice you made. It was the wrong one versus Hakeem.
Yeah, the Dream Shake easily goes over here. I wish that Kobe can go for it in this one, but the Dream Shake is just, it's more iconic. It's devastating. And while Kobe's fadeaway was beautiful shot, I can't really make a case for it to go over the Dream Shake. Not a legitimate one, at least.
Okay, so MJ's post fadeaway moves on to meet Hakeem's Dream Shake in the Final Four. Anything, just when you're looking at that, I know you haven't done your research yet. YouTube has not voted, but as you look at that matchup, what are you going to be thinking about?
Jordan won every year except for the years that Hakeem won, which were the years that Jordan wasn't in the league. And like, that's not a good way to look at this move matchup, but I do think it's interesting. A good one, another one is what player would look better on the logo, and that's going to lean Jordan. And then another one I think is just the types of defenders and defense that they were facing at the time in the 90s with how the rules were structured. That one will be playing in my head quite a bit.
Hayes?
Yeah, I mean, excited about all the matchups. I do think that, Matt just laid it out there with the Dream and Jordan, the story that goes into that one, and that's going to be interesting to see how people vote on that. But I'll say this, I think that people have voted pretty well in this tournament so far, and the audience vote in this has really, really surprised me because I thought some would go ways that they didn't go for sure.
All right, I'm going to give you a couple of things on MJ's post fadeaway to go and check out when you're looking at the tape. Don't sleep on the complexity of MJ's post fadeaway, including how far and the angle that he puts his pivot foot that allows him to turn less, which allows him to get a little bit more separation, and look at what he called, and I didn't know this had a name until I was doing a little bit of research today, but his windshield wiper move, just the fake that he got to and how clean it was to get off his post fadeaway, the windshield wiper move. Check that out as you go to YouTube vote and as Matt and Hayes go to do their tape research, because now the real conversation's hit. We're in the Final Four. We've got the big hitters now. We've got Hakeem, we've got MJ, we've got Dirk Nowitzki, and we have the Skyhook. And Matt Moore's quest to get the Skyhook out of here continues. We'll see if he's successful coming up in the next couple of days. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts, including YouTube. Thanks to Matt and Hayes for their expertise every day. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen. Until next time, be kind to each other, and we will see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On NBA.